All right, well, this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again this week. Not a lot to talk about this week. I was lucky at the last second. Armies decided to come on my show. I had a couple of different people lined up, but people had different engagements and things. We got Hex Colin in 2 weeks. He's going to show up, one of the 14 producers for the game, producer tiers as far as Kickstarter. And then next week I have, I always forget what his name is, another Hex content producer, and he was on my Twitter feed. Oh, gosh. I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna look at it real quick. I'm gonna cheat. Hex Boss will be coming up next week. But Armies has been on the program before, so we're not gonna do any crazy go nuts interviews. But I am going to let him talk to you about his guild real quick and the type of content he does and plug himself. So Armies, take it away.
All right. Well, I am Armiesofmordor on Twitch, Twitch TV/Armiesofmordor. You can follow me on Twitter at Master of Mordor to get notified whenever I go live, or just follow me on the stream, or both. I'm a member of Murder Inc., and I've recently have joined a second guild, which I hope isn't too terrible, but I'm joining Dragonborn as well. Yeah, I'm a multi-guilder from WoW as well, so I hope no one takes offense that I join more than one guild.
Right. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Friday update that just came out. We'll be talking about how Gore responds to Gameforge, some of the different problems some people have had with that. There's a 2 turns ahead draft archetype podcast I'm going to point out, and then there are 2 budget decks we're going to try to go over. We're going to try to build some budget decks with some very interesting limitations. So let's just go ahead and jump right in with the Friday update first off. So, first thing I'm just going to say is this picture is property of Taurus Entertainment, not me, so please don't sue me, whoever you are. But the Friday update last week, if you guys didn't know, we tried to get the tournaments to work. A lot of the drafts, because everyone loves drafts, people were drafting and draft servers were crashing. And the reason why is because there's some middleware, some issues between some of the, I guess they're kind of like database servers, and they're going to hopefully squash that this next week. But that's really the big deal, what's going on there. I don't know, Armies, do you have anything to add on to that as far as the... Do you know that much about programming or anything?
I don't know that much about programming, but what it sounds to me like was that one of the programs that was designed to send information from the draft servers, or maybe like the pack opening servers, to the draft servers back to the like collection servers, were having some sort of memory leak issue.
Right.
And every 6 to 8 hours it would just overload the memory, and it would cause crashes and the servers to fail.
Right, so. Exactly. So talking about the auction house, and they're going to try to get that up and running, and then trading sometime after that. Of course, we still have the contest from last week. I've gotten a lot of great submissions for that, so go ahead and keep those coming. If you guys missed it, exactly what the contest is, well, you're just going to have to go back to episode 27 and watch and see what the contest was. And it's for 5 packs of cards decided by my good friend Technofy. Moving on, we've got some beta key giveaways that if you are a content producer like myself or like Armies of Mordor, you need to start contacting Hex Media at hexccg.com to get your beta key. Beyond that, they just kind of, it's pretty light on information. You did enter my contest, and you had a pretty good deck idea. However, I will say that a lot of the people that I know personally that are I'm trying to get someone that's like not a content producer, but
yeah,
you guys
did have that. I didn't expect to win. I just wanted.
You guys did have some pretty good decks, but I have one that I'm looking at that is in the running as far as the one I like the best right now. Actually, I might just test it out online at some point in time. I was actually very sick this last weekend, and so I'd just like to say thank you to all the people that when I was on Twitter and I was like, I'm sick, you guys were really, really nice and humored me, and it really encouraged me to get better. So I am better now, and I actually didn't miss that much. Although if you did do a tournament last weekend and there were some problems, I believe that Cryptozoic credited you with a draft tickets that are will last forever. Basically, you get your packs back and an extra pack, and then you also get a draft ticket.
And 5,000 gold.
And 5,000 gold to boot, right? Which actually isn't that much, apparently.
I was able to open 4 common chests or something like that. Right. Or not open, roll 4 common chests. Opening chests isn't in the game yet.
Right. But. So Corey responds on the thread. There's been a lot of concern about Gameforge, which is I believe they're the European company that Cryptozoic has partnered with in order to take care of some of the different marketing and stuff for that specific region, and they also handle a lot of the back-end server stuff for a lot of the maintenance of the larger servers and that type of thing. And I thought I did a pretty good job of answering people and making sure that people know, hey, Gameforge isn't taking over the game. They're just basically handling some of the larger stuff because they've got infrastructure. It's not really a big deal. We've talked about it before. I don't think there's very much else to say here. Armies, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's actually probably a little bit better that they have a different company taking care of that, because they probably have little to no experience actually running the high-end stuff that they need to run their servers on, especially if the game gets super popular and they have to add more and more servers.
Right, exactly. And he also talks about having the different gardens and how much of a big deal that is. Also, the fact that different currencies in different regions, you kind of want to avoid like money laundering and stuff. And if Hex was one concurrent system across the world, that would just lead to a lot of possible legal issues in my mind. So I mean, as far as us wanting to have different gardens and stuff, or one of the same garden to buy and sell cards, I mean, it's not really
Bitcoin's the card game.
Yeah, there's no big. I mean, as far as the competitive, like there's going to be global tournament servers for like the high-end tournaments, so shouldn't be a big problem there. I really don't think it's. I don't know.
All it is you can't buy or sell stuff on a different server, but there should be plenty of people for you to play with on your own garden to trade with, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Right, so moving on, there was a 2 Turns Ahead podcast, which was pretty long. Not going to lie, it's about an hour and a half. John's talking with Jeremy and Zubrin again, and they just talk about some of the different draft strategies. They actually open both a regular pack and a primal pack, so get over there, listen to the podcast, give your opinions on what your first pick would have been in either case, and yeah, just it's a pretty good listen. So you're not busy or working out or something, give it a good listen. Have you listened to it yet? It just came out today. I wouldn't expect you to.
I listened to like the first half hour. I still have the window open. I've just been watching other Twitch streams. I haven't got around back to finishing it yet.
Right, yeah. It is very, like, these things typically run long. He doesn't like have like a specific stop time on them, so that's one of the things with that. Beyond that, we are going to the challenge tonight. This is like really, really fast because there's just not a lot of news. We're moving right into the deck doctors. We're only 11 minutes into the show, but the deck doctor tonight, we're going to try to make 2 decks. So the challenge here is we can only use rares if they came in the starter decks. We're going to prioritize starter deck cards over other cards. Otherwise, we can only use commons and uncommons. So we're going to start off with a deck that's going to be a mono Ruby deck. So we'll go ahead and we're going to name the deck here. I have to do something funny. That's right. I have to get out of this window to do this. Yeah, we're going to make a deck over here. So, yeah, this is going to be budget Ruby. Also, interestingly enough, John confirmed on the podcast exactly what I had been saying, which was they will not do tournaments unless there is trading in the game, because that will allow people to complete decks. Otherwise, it's kind of like a crapshoot of you just have to keep buying packs and hoping for the cards that you want to play the deck, and that's just not fair to people.
Yeah.
So, So
that was a nice thing that I heard on the podcast too. They mentioned that quite early, and so I do remember hearing that. I was very happy about that because, you know, it's going to be like I'm short 2 Hive Creations plus Eternal Guardians if I want to run like my Ruby Eye deck again, or I'm short like 3 Angels and maybe a Vampire King and some Inquisitors, Marbles, Totems if I wanted to play like the Blood Diamond deck, or if I wanted to play, you know, Gore Storm deck. I don't have any of the.
Well, Gore Storm actually does come in.
Yet.
So let's look at some of the different things that you do get.
I have the Gore Feast. I don't have the Storm part of the Gore.
Right. Yeah. So you get Gore Feast, which is really, really nice. You could easily get 2 of these, which we'll probably throw into this deck. I mean, that's basically $20, and you're going to get most of the deck just buying this Orc Champion Poca Conflagrater deck, which is pretty nice. Let's look at some of the other rares. Tatalka also comes in here, which would easily slot into the same deck. Not exactly the most
I'm not too
synergistic.
Fond of Tatalka in the
it's not the best, but by herself,
is trying to be low to the ground rather than higher to the ground.
Right,
like
that's true.
Creatures.
That's true, but she's just by herself. She's a very, very solid card. So
she is very solid. I just think she's more for like the mid-rangey Ruby decks, and I think is more for like the aggro Ruby decks.
Let's see. What are some of the other rares? We have Lord Benjamin the Wise. It's another one that comes in there, which is pretty good. He's unique, so you probably won't run more than 3 of them anyways. So, you know, you could buy 2 decks or 3 decks, and you could have what you need with him. He's pretty good. He's gonna, you know, if you're gonna do some sort of human something.
Triumvirate. Cough.
Well, I don't think I would try to do that. But the dwarves get Droz Walker, which is pretty freaking awesome. He sees play in a lot of competitive decks, especially the mono wild decks.
Can't be murdered. Very powerful effects.
Yeah, definitely
doesn't even say it in the text on the card, but it's just.
I don't know that he's worth $10 by himself, but he's definitely worth at least 3 or 4. So there is that. Everything else, I mean, you know, I'm not going to really look at the commons and uncommons. So let's see. The Shinhair one, let's see. Is there something in here that's really good? Not really. You get murder in there.
And there isn't really much for the rare.
Unfortunately, so the Shinhair one is probably the weakest. It probably will be the lowest seller. You do get Onslaught, I guess. You get Onslaught. But yeah, that's probably not going to be what you're going to want to buy. It's probably going to be one of the top 3 decks if you're going to try to buy decks in order to get specific rares to build competitive decks. So moving back to the deck we're building, we're obviously going to run Ruby Lance, the 4 burns, not 54 burns, just 4. We can only run 4. We could probably run 2 burns to the ground. Okay, maybe.
I think Burn to the Ground's a little overrated for the aggressive style of the deck that it has to be. I think it's a little clunky, a little slow.
But I mean, we're dealing with commons and uncommons right now, so.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want more removal, but besides Burn and Ruby Lance, I'd probably rather play Sapper's Charge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll probably throw Sapper's Charge in here as well. You know, and actually, let's go ahead and turn on those. We could also maybe even run ChargeBot in here.
I was like when I was building it earlier, just to see like the comments. I actually have 4 ChargeBots in this deck.
I always like having one burn to the ground. At least one.
Yeah, one's fine, but like I said, it's kind of slow. I'd rather have quick action removal rather than basic speed removal. But yeah, I have 4 ChargeBots in mind because I'm going for that turn 3 Gore Feast kill.
Right.
Where you can sneak under Extinction because you can play the Charge Bot, you can Poca on turn 3. On turn 2, you can play like Arena Brawler or Ruby Pyromancer. And then on turn 3, you can Crimson Clarity into Gore Feast and just kill them outright if they haven't interacted at all.
You're playing Crimson Clarity?
It's the only way to get under Extinction when you're on the play, on the draw, not on the play. Your board will get Extinctioned away. before you can. I would have it in the sideboard, honestly, for when, like, if I go first the first game, I beat them. Second game, then I would sideboard Crimson Clarity in. But I think it's a really required card to be able to beat the Extinction decks. Because I think the only way you're going to beat a turn 4 Extinction with this deck is to turn 3 kill them with
Hey, I've had
Gore
people
Feast.
kill me turn 4 before I could Extinction without having to play Gore Feast at all.
Well, that is possible. It is possible, but I kind of like the power level.
That was my top 8.
Charge Spot, Ruby Pyro, or Arena Brawler, and then Gore Feast follow up with Poca Power is like 20 some odd damage straight.
So yeah, we're definitely putting Gore Feast in here. So that's going to be our rare that we'll put in here. We'll put 2 of those in here. So that's not too much. It's like, even in buying 2 of those decks is like, you're going to get most of the rest of these uncommons. Now, obviously, if you can get the Rage Fires and trade for Rage Fire, you're going to want to put Rage Fire in this deck as an upgrade eventually. But we're just assuming that you don't have access to that. Ember Spire, which is another one you're going to want for your either main deck or sideboard type of card.
Yeah, that was the one that I really wanted to add to this deck, but I'm like, well, it's a rare, so it doesn't really apply to the rules.
Tormentor's kind of low on the totem pole. I mean, you could probably pick these up pretty cheap because most people are only running like 2 of them anyways. So yeah, I think Tormentor's going to be one that you could play, but it's not really a high priority for you to get. The priority card is basically Rage Fire. Rage Fire is the highest priority.
Kind of clunky in a Gore Feast deck because Gore Feast is the card that's going to be stuck in your hand for, a few turns until you get the optimal play it out. I think it's better in a deck with a lot of more 1-drops than this deck will probably be able to run. It's hard to empty your hand that quickly in this kind of a deck without like rares and stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and throw some. We need shards. Shards.
Like, I put a couple Crushing Blow, the Gem-Crazed Berserkers, Veteran Gladiators, Furious Taskmasters. When you think cheap and you think fast, you think red orcs.
Yeah. Okay, so the Ruby Lance is really not going to deal direct damage, so we may consider going down to like 3 of these, because it just clears the path. That's more or less what it's doing for us.
Yeah, that's what it's for.
So we've got
it also,
that.
in very clutch situations, can kill things like Eternal Guardian for you pretty easily, actually. Having 4 rubies when they have an Eternal Guardian probably isn't that hard.
Bombsmith is probably not that good, and that makes us buy another deck, so we're going to remove those for now.
Yeah, I think Bombsmith is more of a sideboard card.
Yeah, you're going to be able to get those pretty easily.
It's a powerhouse and limited, so you're probably going to, like, after a couple of Ruby drafts, we'll have your play set of them anyway, so I wouldn't buy a deck just to get Bombsmith anyway.
How many Crimson Clarities? Like 2, you think?
2 is what I had, but
yeah,
you can sideboard them. Like, they don't have to be main decks.
You probably pull the Baby Yeti. I mean, he is not that great.
I use Charge Bot instead of Yeti.
I think Charge Bot is going to be infinitely better because it's going to get you to that exactly where that Poca Power, which is going to give you a lot more damage in the long run. Early Baby Yeti can feel good because you're like, turn 1, you haven't even played a card and I'm putting damage on you. It's like, well, okay.
I would like Baby Yeti more if Insight Fury was 2 cost instead of 3. But alas, that is not the case.
With our Gem-Crazed Berserker, we're probably going to gem it with haste, so we can push the damage as soon as he comes into play.
It depends if you're running Furious Taskmaster or not. If you run the full 4 Furious Taskmasters, you could play the Fear Gem, the can't be blocked except by Ruby or Artifact Troops.
Yeah, I suppose that's an option as well. We're at 21 shards. I feel pretty comfortable at 21.
I was adjusting the shards with like the curve of the deck, and I just kept going up to their like deck analysis and draw testing, and I just was trying to tweak it so I get the acceptable percentage as high as I could. And with 20 shards, I was able to get to 75.13%. with an equal chance to screw and flood, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I mean my screw flood is like 10% screw, 15% flood.
Yeah, I think mine's like 12.5% screw, 12.5% flood, or
I
something
think you
like
kind of
that.
want to get screwed more often in this deck, is what you want, because you want to draw a lot of spells in this type of deck. You could pretty much go on 2 shards on most hands in this deck.
Yeah, well, let's see.
Even on one, if you draw 1 and like 2 Savage Raiders, you can go on.
If I move the shards down to 19 and add in a 3rd Sapper's Charge on my list, I can make the screw go up to 14.65%, the flood to 10.22%. So it's actually not too bad to run 19 shards, apparently, in this deck.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how hard you want to push it. You do want to make sure you can get to that Gore Feast. If you get a 3rd Gore Feast, then you're probably going to want to run at least 20 or 21 shards, I would say. But
that's why I kind of liked 20 myself, was that you still have a fairly good shot at getting to the 4 mana for Gore Feast, but you don't absolutely need to have it, because you could theoretically play it on 3 resources with Crimson Clarity, or just, kill them because you've drawn all these aggro troops before you even need Gore Feast.
The only thing I don't like about Crimson Clarity is I feel like I'm giving up a card that could be a body. That's the only thing. I mean, I understand it's getting us to Gore Feast, but...
It is a dead card. That's why I think it's probably better off in the sideboard, because I think it's really important in the matchup when you're playing against Extinction, but when you're not playing against Extinction, it's probably not as
Or the
powerful.
other aggro player. You really need that body,
Well, even against the other aggro player is typically swinging in every turn on you while you're swinging in on them.
That's what I'm saying.
If you can Gore Feast the turn before them, you could just outright kill them.
But if I draw, versus the other aggro player, if I in my first hand, if I draw 2 of my Crimson Clarities and a Gore Feast, that doesn't seem that great.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad, but that's why you only run a couple. You generally only will see 1, but at least that's the plan. You're trying to kill them before you draw enough cards to see the second copy.
So yeah. Yeah, and hello to everyone in my channel. I know you guys are probably saying hello. I'm not really reading my chat right now. I'm doing a bad job of that. But yeah, so that's pretty much the deck. I mean, pretty cheap deck. I'm pretty sure you could put this deck together by just simply buying 2 of the Orc starter deck, and you get 1 for free. I believe if you had bought the what is it called, the 25 packs, the Slacker Backer, I believe you get 1 of these for free anyways. Or if you're like the lowest end tier backer, I believe, that actually gets cards with their backing, you get 1 of the 4 starter decks. So you already get 1 of these, and then buying another one for $10. You can build this deck. So this is a deck that I expect to see a lot of, or something similar to this, probably with actual having Rage Fire in the deck when we're playing competitive matches. I always expect to see this, at least 1 person in the room playing this when I have about 20 people at a Friday Night Magic. Very cheap to construct, and still pretty potent because it can kill you by about turn 4 on average, in an open board state, in Goldfish mode. And sometimes you do end up with those Goldfish games where you just can't play spells, or the one block you throw up is either invalid because they kill it, or they have like Veteran Gladiator.
You can't block, or Suppressive Fire, or you trample over it with Crushing Blow, or
yeah, I mean Ruby Aura also is another removal card that's pretty good in this deck. So as a 1 of, so there you go. And we've already seen this deck do pretty well. With the rare, and I mean, there's very few rares to begin with in the deck. Other rares you're going to want to put in here, obviously, are going to be like Zoltog is a legendary, so probably 1 to 2 Zoltog I like to have in here. People weren't playing him in the challenge series, I noticed, but I personally really like him because his ability to extend into the long game. You also have...
Yeah, I like Zoltog for those games where you can't quite kill your opponent, and then the Extinction, then you play Zoltog, and it's like, I'm going to rebuild with just this Zoltog. I'll make an orc when it hits you, and then I'll make 2 more orcs. And
I mean, this is probably the best, like, the Orc deck is probably the best bang for the buck. I mean, you get Tatalka in there as well, and she is another one that if you wanted to go a little bit bigger, you could change your curve to maybe be 23, and you could throw Tatalka in here, and some other things as well. So
yeah, and then if you wanted to go,
or just one
like,
Tatalka would be good at the very end.
if you wanted to go for the more like mid-range to aggressive Ruby strategy, you could even go a little higher. Like Ash Harpy isn't very expensive, or probably won't be very expensive. I know that the XCCG Pro Store was selling it for $1.50. That's a really solid aggressive card that's really good after a board wipe to just be like, beat your facing turn, it's 8 unless you deal with this. Rampaging Tarask is a legendary. That one's a bit more expensive, but if you really want a really aggressive Ruby deck, that's probably your next
Rampaging Tarask, the ball lightning that never leaves. He never goes away. He never goes away.
The ball lightning that you better have a 1/1 to block.
All right, so we have a couple of options here. I'm going to go ahead and let the chat decide. So we can try to build a budget tempo deck, or we can try to build a budget wild deck. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to confer. We did take a look at it, and we were trying to do tempo, and it looks like if we do tempo, we're probably going to have to go both Sapphire and Diamond. If we do tempo, we're thinking. But the wild deck might be a little bit more potent, although we don't have a lot of great things to ramp into. So yeah, you guys just first person that actually just tells me something that they want to see. Tempo. We're saying tempo, so we're going to do budget tempo. All right, budget tempo. Tempo. All right, so we're going to do the budget tempo here. All right, actually I'm going to go hit my F11 because that makes it even nicer. And start off by let's look at the decks. Let's see what kind of rares can we get. So we can get Lord Benjamin, which we're going to definitely consider putting in here. It depends on how many humans you want to run. We have to run a lot of humans. We have to run like very few non-humans to run this guy and have him do what we need him to do for us. He is only a 1/1, but he does fly, so he has evasion. He's not going to block for us hardly ever. There's maybe some tricks. We could throw some combat tricks on him to help get him through, but that's probably the only thing I'm seeing there. Other than that, there's really not a lot. Like, you're probably not going to play a lot of the other rares that are in here. Like, you're definitely not playing hero in this deck. I mean, again, you need to play a lot of humans to get that to work. Unfortunately, we didn't get Lord Alex in this deck. That would have been freaking awesome. But
well, it wasn't a Ruby deck. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't a 3-color deck.
Or in any of the decks.
They could have made the starter deck a Triumvirate deck with one of each, but that wouldn't be very good.
So we do get Dro's Colossal Walker, so we'll probably try to play with 2 of these. The big problem with playing this deck is we don't get like time. I forget what it's. Oh, I forget what it's called. Basically, you get extra time. No, the one that gives you extra turns.
Mastery of Time.
Mastery of Time. We don't get Mastery of Time,
That's
legendary, and it's legendary.
Yeah.
So that one's going to be tougher to come by. And we don't get Menacing Grolk, which is kind of the biggest deal.
We also don't get Soul Marble, which is really good with Drew's Colossal Walker as well.
So all things that you would want to have in this deck. But we're going to try. We're going to see what we can come up with, because we still get a lot of decent things with the tempo. So we're definitely going to go with the Diamond and the Sapphire. And for now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw Lord Benjamin in here. Lord. For now, we'll just put 2 of them in here. He might come out. We may not keep him. So it depends on how many humans. Really, that's going to be the factor as far as if we keep him or not.
If I had to think of humans that aren't rare that I'd be willing to run in this deck, they're very far and few in between. Buccaneer is probably the only one that comes to mind as being super good. Krakenguard Mariner could be fairly good with
Mentalist is good.
With Drew's Walker. Mentalist is 3 costs. I have a feeling that the only thing it can inspire is going to be Buccaneer and Colossal Walker.
Colossal Walker, yeah.
So I think the value of it
Dro's in here
is probably not going to be where you want it to be. You'd probably draw more cards from Oracle Song.
This is Dro's Walker twice in 2 weeks. Just or the second time in 2 weeks, I guess. Back to back, Droz Walker's making these decks. So definitely a good card.
This is where you really wish he had Cerulean Mirror Knight. I think that card has much more value in a deck like this than Cerulean Mentalist. But that's a rare. So
yeah, for sure.
But that would be my first upgrade for this kind of deck.
Right. It's going to be interesting. Like, there's a mode, just so everyone knows, like with when you're playing the dungeons with what's it called?
Highlander?
No, when you play the dungeons with the WoW TCG, and it talks about upgrading your deck and leveling up after you do a dungeon and you fail at it, like as if you gained experience and stuff, and you get to add more cards to your deck, or like depending on how well you did, you get to open your gear packs and then like up your deck. And that's going to be kind of how PvE is going to be, I think. It's going to be very interesting like that. So...
Well, I know they said they were going to have like at least one like draft dungeon type thing where you draft your first pack of cards or whatever. Then every time you win, you like get to open another pack and add something to your deck or something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be like an additive, and you'll be like deck building skills on the fly while you're doing PvE content, which will be pretty neat.
Should make for some highly entertaining streaming content.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Some of these are probably like maybes. I'm just kind of like just throwing things in there for now, and that we're gonna cut it down because that's pretty much how I do this. Just kind of like just put the ideas up front, and we'll see what happens, type of thing. So I think Phoenix Guard's guy is actually not that bad. Considering
the
what we have.
Fire for 2.
I mean, it doesn't die to Heat Wave. I mean, that's kind of like the biggest thing.
It is,
like the way that they nerfed this card or changed it because they had so many 2/2 flyers. It made it so annoying because, it actually it dodges Heat Wave.
Yeah, like a 1/3 for 2 mana is way better than a 2/2 for 3 mana. Way better. Like the card is just infinitely better.
Sounds like you got a smoke alarm going off over there.
It's not really going to attack and win you any races, but it can stop a lot of guys on the ground and in the air. Thunderbird can't get past it.
Citizenry is another one that's criminally underplayed, which might see some more play now that we've got people that... Another one, Protectorate Sorcerer, is also another one that...
It suffers from the same problem like Wild Root Dancer suffers, and that's like...
Well, yeah, if you don't have targets for it.
In response, I killed a troop you're buffing, there goes your effects.
Sure. Sure, but still you at least force that. You force that action. So there's two sides to that.
Assuming they weren't gonna kill the troop that you were trying to
you know what happens
anyway.
when we assume, sir. I was actually considering running this.
It also is a little clunky at the 2 diamond threshold, but...
We got this shell-safe Sure Shot. He's a human.
I think what's really criminally underplayed is the Mystic Spirit Walker guy, the 4/3 that when it attacks a target troop you control doesn't take damage the next time this game. That one's criminally underplayed.
Alright, so there we go. We've got a couple of different things here. So 89 cards to whittle down. Our curve looks pretty good for 89 cards. Oh, we don't have our shards in here either. I need to put shards in. Shards apparently show up as
something cards.
Shards are apparently are some sort of rarity that is not uncommon.
It's system rarity because you have them automatically in the deck builder.
Shards of Face. Isn't it great that we have shards? We have fixing in we have fixing in the form of Shards of Fate, where it's not rare, so it's open to everyone.
Yes, I love the fact that it's not like a $40
resource,
or $100 or a $200 land.
I mean, that's quite a bit much. But yeah, I mean, that's going a bit much. But yeah.
Well, I don't know. I haven't played Magic in a really long time. I don't know what they cost.
Typically, like yeah, the most expensive lands right now in Magic are the sack lands, which are like 40. They topped around 40 or 50 right before Modern season started.
The
I
fetch
believe.
lands.
The fetch lands, yeah, because they haven't been reprinted.
Yeah. Well, what about like
They're getting
what
ready to
about
be reprinted.
yeah? What about like Taiga and Underground Sea or whatever? Like those
Uh,
really expensive lands. Aren't those more expensive than the fetch lands?
they used to be. It depends. The Legacy isn't as popular. A lot of it is on the format popularity, and of course how many you need. Like all the pain
But yeah,
lands also
even
are
the more
dirt cheap
recent
now.
lands that are rare are like $6. Like they're the new temples, the scry, and the shock lands. Like
Yeah.
I'm much happier having 5 cent mana fixing for sure.
Yeah. But again, I do think that eventually we will see some rare
High
lands like
rarity
that.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ones that come into play
Utility.
unexhausted basically is what we're going to see eventually.
I'm interested to see how they make utility lands in this game or resources if
So
they do.
so we are playing a lot of humans just to play this Lord Ben, and he may not even like pay off for us really. So we may just
I still think it's probably better just to play like Thunderbirds and stuff and just forget Lord Ben.
yeah, I think we're just gonna do that. So we're gonna go ahead and cut him right away out of the decks.
Because I think most of these budget style decks they need to be fast, and Lord Ben is anything but fast.
Sure, sure. I put Righteous Paladin here just to see, but yeah, we'll go ahead and pull that. That's an easy choice right there. That's a different deck. That's the life gain deck. That's not really that great.
It is really amusing when you're playing the Wild Diamond version though, where you abuse the Shin here with the Paladin with the Scrivener, and you just get like a 18/18 Righteous Paladin on like turn 4
We didn't even
somehow.
put a. Oh, just so everyone's aware, on that last deck, we want to run Poca on that last deck. We didn't actually put a champion on this deck either, but we're probably gonna run Feather Drifting Downriver.
The Life Drain Champion is a consideration with Drew's Walker and Thunderbird as well. But
Right, yeah. I mean, we did see that in the last tournament, so that's the other thing you could run. So Repel is probably a removal that we don't want in this deck. If anything, we want it on the sideboard. So we're going to go ahead.
I think Repel's better than Inner Conflict, unless we were just misspeaking.
It is better than Inner Conflict. The thing is, we need proactive removal, which is not what Repel is. Repel is reactive removal. You know what I'm saying? Because like, we should be the attacker. We like with this deck, we're the ones that are being offensive. They're removing threats, and Repel isn't necessarily going to remove a threat because they're going to be defending. So it's going to put you in an odd, awkward situation, which you don't want to be in.
Yeah, but Inner Conflict just screams to me that it's just super weak against certain decks in this format, whereas Repel is probably better off.
Oh, it's not the best, but
yeah, I mean, I love Solitary Exile. That's my favorite removal in the entire set.
Well, yeah, well, yeah, do you mean the catch-all removal that removes everything? That's your favorite? That is really weird.
Oblivion Ring is amazing.
That is really weird that that's your favorite.
I know.
Removing our Oracle songs down to 2 because this is more just like later gas. We could probably take these down to 1. Sapphire's Charge is more removal for us. We probably could take that down to 2. We'll probably remove it altogether. It does deal damage to the face, but yeah, the Silver Talon needs to stay at 4. Counter Magic can probably go down to 2, and we can throw 2 on the sideboard in case we run into Extinction. Air Superiority is probably not the best for us.
Probably not.
Yeah, we don't really have a ton of flyers. Yeah, so probably not going to run that. We are running the Flying Champion for now, but we'll probably swap that for the life game one, like Armies is pointing out. Buccaneer and all of our Time Ripples have to stay. Those are have to stays just because we're running Dro's Walker. Shell Safe Sure Shot's probably not the best. We can go ahead and probably pull him out of here. Arcane Shield is like a one of, but it's like, what are we really arcane shielding? Like a Thunderbird, I guess. Drows, I guess.
If they're repelling it or interconflicting it or trying
yeah.
to solitary exile it.
The big misplay that people are going to make with Arcane Shield, and I keep seeing people make this mistake, is they'll play it proactively on their turn. You really
you want to do it in response.
You want to
value out of it.
Yeah, you want to do it in response. You want to force them to try to deal with something that you have, and then you get the decision of, oh, do I want to spell shield this or not? So
you just have to think of it as a stone skin, but with permanent benefits. You want to use it as a stone skin. You know, counter target spell that's targeting my guy, but it also prevents my guy from being targeted for the rest of the game. If you're using it any other way but that, you're probably using it wrong. Unless your opponent tapped out and you don't want to waste your mana, you can do it at the end of their turn, but even then, that's still kind of, you know, you could have got a removal spell out of them or an enter the play trigger from like Bombsmith or something.
Tractorate Sorcerer we could probably just remove altogether. I still like the Citizenry, although we could probably take it down to 2. Forgotten Lord could be maybe a one of for now. The Guard Trainer,
I don't think it's that relevant.
Yeah, it's probably not that great.
The biggest thing in our deck that it can inspire already has Crush.
Yeah, so that's probably, we don't really need that. The Buccaneer we definitely want. The Guard Scout's probably not the best. We could probably easily cut those. Surprisingly, our curve is shaping up. Let's see. So I definitely want to try to keep 4 of these or 3 of these wizards, because I think that they're pretty good for a common.
I think they're really good, especially if you can afford to get Mirror Knight in the deck, because you get 2 triggers off of Mirror Knight when you play it.
Right, and it gives you much better troops than what do you call it? Than the other card. The Shell Safe Sure Shot. Yeah, Shell Safe Sure Shot. Say that 3 times, 5 times fast.
Yeah, I don't want to. I do think that the turtle guy, I'm just gonna call him the turtle guy. He's probably better against ground-based aggro, but the wizard is definitely better when your opponent doesn't have flyers for sure. Because that ability to just keep pumping up your guy every time you hit him with a 1/1 is pretty powerful, especially in a deck that could potentially give him life training when he's like a 4/5 or a 5/6 or something.
Oh, there we go. Mentalist. There we go. That's an easy choice. We can get rid of these.
Yeah, I don't think Mentalist is very good. The Mirror Knight
we needed to clear up our 3-point slot a lot there, and that was an easy choice.
Easy choice to cut. I don't like Mimic very much either.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit too slow for us.
I missed it.
You missed it. Can you go downstairs, please? Yeah, we can play later, okay? I'm in the middle of my show, okay? Say okay, Daddy. Okay, Daddy. You still want to say hi? Say hi.
I think Dingler is probably too expensive for this deck.
Oh, Dingler is, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we can pull that as well. Dingler, yeah, I'm sitting on it there. So the only thing I liked about, and I do like Mimic a lot better after they reduced the cost on it, is the fact that I could potentially play it and then play like a 5th Buccaneer. It's basically like a 5th Buccaneer or another Noble Citizenry or another Droz Walker or another Forgotten Lord.
I like it a lot more when you're abusing the fact that you can have like double unique troops like Archmage Renlock and
well, then it definitely feels better. But I'm just saying it does a lot of what do you call it, utility things, and it's cheap enough now that I can do it all in one turn, whereas before it was virtually impossible to pay 4 to copy something, throw it into my hand, and then like try to cast it in the same turn. I was like, dude, I've got like 6 resources maybe, or 5.
Yeah, I mean, I know they wanted to show off like the replica mechanic or whatever, but it was totally fine as a 4-mana clone.
It was not
Like
even close to being fine, sir. I completely disagree with you there.
Four mana clone is.
Oh, you
As
mean the
long as
clone? Oh, yeah, straight up clone. Yeah, it was
straight up
fine for
clone
that.
where it
And we're
puts
going
the
to get that
copy
in the
into
next set.
play. Yeah, I know. I know they said they're gonna print one eventually or whatever, but there was nothing wrong with it the way it was before they changed it to the way it is now. Like, I don't know. I think they maybe just overreacted a little bit to some people on the forums being like, he paid 4 mana and he copied my Uranaz. Well,
Well, yeah, but how late in the game is it here? I mean, that's pretty late in the game there. Something else happened way before that happened.
yeah, well, I know, but it's like clone is like a staple for Magic at 4 mana. I mean, they've had cheaper versions, but at 4 mana, it's pretty much there's always one of those type of effects in like every block that I've ever looked at the set for at 4 mana. There's actually multiple like cloning cards in the current Magic format. Some of them are cheaper, but they only target your own troops. Some of them are more expensive, but they can clone artifacts and creatures and things like that. So I think 4 mana for just a straight clone it, put it into play is fine as long as it was like if it just put a replica of it into play instead of like or copying like the permanent buffs on the card is probably the thing that made it slightly powerful, more powerful than in Magic. Because like if you cloned a 1/1 with 6 1/1 counters on it, you get a 1/1. Whereas in this game, you get a 7/7. Like
all right,
that's,
so
I guess, the only difference.
So we just dumped Mesmerize because for the same reason we dumped, what is it called? Repel, because it's not proactive. We really don't want proactive cards. So we did actually end up with room for 4 Interconflict and 4 Solitary Exile, which I think is pretty strong in this deck. We also have the 4 Time Ripple. We have 12 plus so we have quite a few spot removal cards. We've got 16 spot removal cards if you count the Buccaneers, plus the Sapper's Chart, so that's 19 spot removal cards. It's quite a lot. You might want to buff up your Oracle Song by 1. I have to check. I also needed room in my space because I didn't have that many. The Sapphire was like drowning out the Diamond in the deck, and it still kind of is. So you might try to get some more Diamond cards in this deck to try to smooth out your draws a little bit to even things out.
Well, if you wanted to even things out, you could always trade the turtle guy with the bird guy.
No, that's not even acceptable. Not even close to being acceptable. But
I don't know. I really do like the turtle guy against aggro though.
But yeah, I mean you could still run him in the sideboard or in the reserve pile. So our curve turned out pretty well. We went up to 3 Sapper's Charges because it's our only 1-drop. Obvious changes to this deck are going to be the Ancestors Chosen for your Sapper's Charges. You're going to want to get Menacing Gralk to replace, maybe not Droz, but definitely this Forgotten Lord, and the Noble Citizenry is going to get replaced by either the Time or the Time, whatever it's called, and Mastery of Time. I want to call it Time Walk, and it's not Time Walk. It's definitely not Time Walk.
Oh man, 2 mana Time Walk, too good.
Yeah, yeah, but other than that, the deck should be pretty solid, even for I would argue to say what we did tonight was we made decks that are like 2.5 decks, tier 2.5. These should beat out like your tier 3 decks with rares, like your Shin Hairs and like the decks that are like what do you call it, the Inspire deck. Even with rares, I think that this is going to beat out a lot of those decks, just because it has a lot of removal, and we're running 2 rares in this deck. 2. I think it's very doable. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this. This kind of showed you that the starter decks are pretty good. This deck is probably going to be a little bit more expensive than the other deck. You would have to do a little bit more trading around, but it's mostly all commons. Hopefully we're going to get some drafting in soon, so you should be able to compile something like this very easily. Again, the rares you're going to put in here are Mastery of Time, the Menacing Gralk, and and Ancestors Chosen, and that's going to basically fill out the deck, and you might even be able to go back to Mono Sapphire, but the deck is still pretty good all by itself.
Thanks, Cerulean Mirror Knight's another rare. That
And then the other one you want to have is you want to have Mirror Knight because you want to draw lots of cards.
Well, you want to have insurance against extinction.
Well, yeah, sure, but Counter Magic should do that pretty well for you, I would think, especially like after siding.
It's hard to always leave up 3 mana and be able to apply enough pressure.
I don't think so, because you only have to have a single Thunderbird in play to apply enough pressure. I mean, and then if you have
Thunderbird gets killed by Zerod's charge power though, which is the big problem.
Yeah, I mean, but still, then they had to use a charge power. I mean, we can go round and round the table on a lot of the different. Oh well, this and that, and this kills that. I mean, there's a lot of different.
Zerod is a pretty typical answer to 1 toughness creatures. Like Thunderbird isn't going to kill anyone that's using Zerod.
Right, and then
but
I could also time Ripple in response. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that you could do. I think the deck's going to be pretty resilient versus a lot of the different decks that are out there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's really a tier 2 because it doesn't have the full rare set. It doesn't have a lot of those threats that you typically look for, but it's still going to be pretty darn good. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the decks tonight. And enjoyed having. I know that I enjoyed having Armies on, as I did before. He's actually, I think, the first guest. No, he's the second guest to make a second appearance on the show. The first one was Jay Crawl, I believe. So congratulations, you're the second person that's been on twice, onto Deck Building to Squire. Tonight we talked about the Friday update and how it is that they're working on the servers, trying to make sure everything is up and running so we can play some of those tournaments. I know everybody's missing out on playing draft. I know I was last weekend, being sick and everything.
You didn't miss much.
That's what people tell me. We talked about how Corey responded to some of the GameForge criticisms and different things, so make sure to check up on that forum post that's on the main Hex forums. Two turns ahead talked about some of the different draft archetypes, and they also mentioned that they will definitely push back the tournaments if there's no trading within the game, so that's definitely a good announcement. I really give John props for that. Make sure to make it over there and listen to the Two Turns Ahead podcast as well. Along with the Friday update, just to backtrack for a second, all of you people that are content providers, make sure that you're emailing that email address that's linked at the bottom of their announcement there, so you can start getting beta keys out to all your viewers. And then we made 2 budget decks, which I'm going to go ahead and link below. And Armies also made some of his own, so I'm going to ask him nicely for his links as well. And I'm going to be doing a lot of typing of cards, and we're going to put out these decks to you guys, because I know that it can be difficult when it is that you don't have a lot of funds to build a competitive deck. And I feel like this is a good place to start for all the people that are trying to be competitive, but they don't have a whole lot of funds to spend. I really do think that this is pretty reasonable, and especially the Ruby one should be very, very attainable. So, Armies, did you have anything else to plug before we close out?
No, I did my plugging at the beginning. I am going to start streaming again. This will be my 3rd time I started streaming today when we're done here. But if you guys want, you can come over and watch me play an hour or 2 of Constructed. I know it's not the most enjoyable thing. I wish I was drafting too. But definitely come on over. I enjoy having viewers.
I feel bad because, like, if I get on, like, I never know, like, how many cards somebody has. So it's like if I'm playing against them, it's like, well, like, is this going to be, like, worth their time? Is it going to be worth my time to, like, kind of get on and even play? So, yeah, I mean, right now,
the one thing I don't like about my deck is that I don't have any solitary exiles because I haven't drafted Diamond to get any yet.
Exactly.
So
commons and uncommons. So.
But the deck has sufficient rares and legendaries that theoretically, with just repels, murders, and inner conflicts, I can do battle against most decks I come up against.
Just one last thing. Just remind everyone we still have that deck building contest until we start trading cards in game. That's going on. So if you need details on that, check out Deck Building to Squire episode 27 from last week. where there are full details from that. Other than that, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families. Try not to rage too much out there.
This is Armies of Mordor signing off.
All right.